City of Stevens Point Board of Water and Sewerage Commissioners meeting, recorded September 12, 2022.
Then let's call the meeting to order of the Stevens Point Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. And I think we start off with a roll call. Is that?
Yep. Well, note we have 4 present, two by Zoom. Paul excused.
And then move on to the minutes of August 8th, which I was not able to attend, but I did read them all. And are there any questions on those minutes or changes that need to be made?
Move for approval, Lockman.
I'll second. Anna.
Been moved and approved. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none against, minutes of August 8th are approved. And on to the approval of department claims. First up is the water department for the month of August.
I'm just curious on 56977. It says deposit tickets. What does that mean?
Okay, you might not have heard that. Kind of far away. Those are for our daily deposits, bank deposits, right? We have to print up. It's printing for those.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Yep.
Lots of
Okay.
check printers.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question on 57008, professional services for well number 12.
5770.
57008.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Strand. Yep. This is one of our capital projects right now. We've had through the capital improvement operational maintenance budget, that whole thing every year. We got the monies for this approved. What's going on right now is we're in kind of the design phase, getting into what we're going to need for well house, what the internal configuration is going to look inside the treatment plant, and also some of the other services related to the test well that went in, things like that.
Okay.
Yep.
So we don't actually have well number 12.
No, this is all getting there.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That was my confusion.
Yep, and I've got a little update for you on that in my director's report too.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have just a general question, and Joel, I don't expect you to answer it, but maybe next month you might be able to. I'm just wondering on our budgets as we look through these, like, do you know what percent is salary and fringe versus like all the other supplies and expenses? You know, like, is it 70% is in salary, or is it the reverse? Anyway, is it 50-50? Do you know what I know that
Well,
and
all
I'm
of-
asking
all
because
of
at
these
the
are-
university we're at like 95% salary and fringe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what we're looking at here is payment of claims that has very little to do with our wages, right? But if you're wondering overall on an expense basis, what
But
the
they're
utilities
down
run.
here. Payroll is down at the bottom.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just saying that up in here.
Yeah.
I can get you those numbers. I don't have them offhand. I think generally speaking, we consider city operations to be somewhere in the 80 to 85 range. But I'll look at those a little closer and get you a number.
I know. I'm just curious how, it compares.
Yeah.
And if it compares over utility too. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it's not going to be real close between all the utility. I mean, it's not going to be terribly different, but when you think about the fact that this year's a good example, 2022 construction year, 2021 also, The most expensive part of that project was stormwater. Stormwater is the smallest enterprise we have from a utility perspective, and the largest expense on that project that year was storm. So that's going to
Yeah.
bring capital expenses to be a higher percentage.
Sure.
So yeah, that'll be an interesting analysis. I'll look at that for you.
Thank you.
Before we leave water, I did have a question on, 57058. That would be on the, up a bit there.
CW, yep.
CW government, CDW government. And then, you know, the cryptic, for me, description of US upgrade, split Palo Alto implementation.
Yeah, and just with the room allowed, that's hard to get everything in here.
Sure.
Basically, what we do is by a percentage of our employees, we split costs with the city that are IT related. So essentially, this happens to be related to a phone upgrade and a firewall upgrade. The Palo Alto is the manufacturer of a firewall. And so the city as a whole is, I mean, there's more than one firewall involved because we have different firewalls that are needed, but this is the firewall to the whole outside world. So when you look at the fact that we have a pretty big server environment ourselves, we have several employees who spend their time at a phone and computer and stuff like that. We have a percentage, what is it, Mary? 39% of IT related things that affect everybody. We pay that based on the balance of employees across the departments. That's for sewer, water, storm, airport, transit, 39%. So within that, this would be water's percentage of that percentage, or utilities percentage of that. Just water. Okay, yeah. Gotcha. So it'll be on all three.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah. Well, head scratcher. If there are no other questions on water, I think we move on to the sewage department. Claims for August. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to stormwater. Also, hearing no questions, I think, do we move for an approval of the claims as submitted, and shown and? Oh, did I?
Fourth set of claims.
Oh.
I went right by it, I'm sorry.
Storm,
Oh, look at that, there's
certainly, how about that?
2 on there?
Yep, yeah.
All right.
I wasn't used to the format.
Airport's no longer the shortest payment of claims.
Okay, so we're reviewing fiber.
Yep.
Our community area network. Is this for the first time or did?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. No questions on locate flags. So, with that, then we have the 4 utilities represented here with claims for August. And I'd entertain a motion to approve the claims as read, and
I'll move for approval, Ray.
Haynes will second.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the claims as presented for August, please indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, claims of August utilities are approved. And next, we move on to a borrowing memo.
Yeah, so this is the only item that isn't a routine item on our agenda today. And tonight, there'll be a kind of a companion memo at Finance. So they're starting the borrowing process. So basically, what this is doing is identifying, and it's pretty well wrapped up in there, but it's identifying 2 years worth of capital for all 3 utilities. And the reason for this is that, well, there's a lot of background here, but essentially several years ago now, approximately 5 years ago now. The city as a whole, which brings along the utilities, kind of did a huge study and committed to the fact that, you know, if we don't do more reconstruction projects, we're gonna end up with infrastructure in the ground that's 400 years old at some point, right? So our benchmark is trying to get to 1% replacement a year so that we can more or less end up with our oldest infrastructure being 100 years old, right? We're not there, even in as aggressive as we've gotten in the last several years. We haven't reached that benchmark of 1%. We've gotten really close. But the good news is we're doing 4 times more than we used to, right? So that's where I come up with the 400 years, is we were really on a 400-year replacement schedule just a few short years ago. The pace we've been on has been drawing cash down pretty hard. We've had some other capital going on, and of course the 2022 year was an incredible surprise when it comes to the cost of doing business in the construction world, and those years also are fading into other years. All that comes down to 2 things. For getting through a couple capital years, we need to do a borrowing, and within those 2 capital years and years ahead, of course, we need to stay up on rates. So this is kind of a, you know, on the cash side, this is what we need to do to account for a couple years worth of capital. But I did want to let you guys know that we'll be studying rates pretty closely, and towards the end of the year, or probably more likely just into next year, we'll be coming forward with some rate increases as well. And I think everybody's seen that, like things like inflation, cost of construction, everything are resulting in us having higher expenses. And again, we need to kind of be able to keep up with the reconstruction projects going on in the city. The map behind, just for your reference, let me try to get it to a point where it, I'm gonna hide these for a second. So this outlines 3 years, including this year, which is up in here. 3 years worth of projects that we're talking about here, just so you can kind of reference them. These change pretty rapidly. Every year this looks differently, but when we put a 5-year plan out, the next year and a half, 2 years is going to see a lot of change in that. But I wanted to show you the scale of some of these projects. So the ones that are dotted or dashed in some way are mostly pavement reconstruction, not full-on utility. But we do get into expenses on those projects too, because you have to adjust manholes. In a lot of cases, if they're on the east side and there's no curb and gutter, we have to dig ditches and swales. So there's improvements in those, but we're not looking at the same kind of cost that's involved downtown here, where we have 84-inch storm sewer and, you know, that kind of thing. So all of these projects are ones involved in the borrowing we're talking about, and the upcoming rate increases. It's to keep up on that kind of pace of reconstruction.
I was just wondering about that one section where it is dotted south of Patch Street in there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because the infrastructure of the storm sanitary and water are current enough?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so generally speaking, we're gonna put, so generally speaking, you're gonna put 3 new roads for every 1 new set of utilities. So utilities can last about 100 years. The roads are, you know, let's say 30 to 50, right? So on a low traffic area, you might end up with two full road reconstruct, the new one a reconstruct, and then everything goes on the 3rd round. On high traffic, it might be more like 30, 35 years before the road needs to be reconstructed. That's why you see some, like these solid lines. This is everything: utilities, roadway, curb gutter, sidewalk, everything replaced there. On these, it's mainly being done because of the road surface. So they'll take the road surface totally off, put down new base course, put down new pavement, and then we'll do whatever we need to on the utility side to facilitate that. Now, sometimes there are spot repairs. Sometimes we'll have something where we know it needs some work, a new valve, a new hydrant, something like that, but typically not full utility replacement in these corridors that are dashed. This is road reconstruction.
Is it predicted here that the use of PVC or HDPE piping pushes that 100-year horizon even further?
I think in my mind what it does is it solidifies it more, because we have pipe in the ground from 20s and 30s that I'm more comfortable with than stuff from the 60s, right? So, you know, it's the type of thing where another reason to keep up on our construction and try to stay in that 100-year replacement levels, because we might hit a bubble where, you know, a couple decades worth of infrastructure is just junk. And we're going to be on a rapid replacement schedule. We're going to be fixing a lot of leaks. We're going to be doing stuff like that down the road, right? When stuff from the 60s becomes 80 years old, which we're looking at 15 years out, right? 15, 20 years out. When that happens, that infrastructure is not very solid. The quality of the materials back then wasn't great, and it's worse than it was in the decades previous. So what I get out of the new materials is that I feel more comfortable saying it'll last 100 years than I am on some of the stuff put in the past. But just like the stuff 20s and 30s, we already know it's good for 100 years. You know, we're there, which I'll talk about later. Oh, 100th anniversary.
So Joel, this is Anna. I'm just wondering, like, where is the referendum in all this? I know there are, what, 4 coming forth? Maybe they're not all having to do with the roads, but
yeah, good
if they're
question.
voted
So all
down,
of these projects are subject to the referendum. There are 5 questions, I think, on the November referendum. And if the projects related to utility infrastructure, road infrastructure replacement get voted down, it doesn't mean that they don't end up getting done. It means they end up getting done a little differently. There are a few options we have there on how to do that. And the first year, you know, if we get a sense for these things failing, the first year is going to be the toughest to respond to, because it's going to have to be immediate that we respond. But then we can plan for that in the second year, and if the referendum language stays in place, you know, the years that follow. But essentially, what's going to happen? Let me see if I can get it. Let's use let's use this project right here as an example. There's definitely more than $1 million worth of transportation-related expenses in there, and so you know, it might end up being that this project gets broken up into the east-west street here, which is Bush, the north-south street here, which I think is this is Sunset, Indiana. And then there's a different project. Maybe it's the remainder of the project we didn't do here this year. Maybe this gets done instead. So the general perspective is that we're still shooting to total dollars spent be about the same, but doing it in a way that facilitates meeting the meter of the
right. So they'll be less
that
than $1 million projects, basically.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The projects that don't physically overlap, they don't have touching construction limits, stuff like that. So we'll have to change course pretty quick in November, but we'll get it done. Yep.
Okay. So and then therefore it doesn't affect borrowing.
Right. Yeah. The goal is still to get the same amount of project done. The differences aren't necessary. I mean, it will actually cost a little more, I think. You know, when you bid out one big project versus bidding out 4 smaller projects, there's a lot of inefficiencies that happen, you know, for one, on the administrative side.
Of scale. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that to that point, we are being conservative on our estimating, conservatively high, you know, because of the things that we've seen happen in the last 12 months.
Right.
But yeah, the goal is to still get the same amount of work done.
Okay.
So to clarify, the dollar amounts here are for 1 year or, you know,
2 years.
2 years protection.
Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of a mix between, so the city always files these intent to reimburse things. So that's why I put 22 through 24 on there, because it's really any mix of projects, including if there's some reimbursement needed for this year, but mostly 23 and 24 projects. This is what I did here is took this year's project costs as year 1, just for sake of comparison, and then averaged out that with the 2 previous years, and that's how I got the total. Just to say, you know, that's what we've been doing, so we're likely to continue doing that, and then added in some well 12 expenses.
So even the
It's accounted for,
averaging out.
yep, yep.
It's accounted for, these, compared to a year prior or 2 years prior,
Yeah,
they're.
it's bumped up a little, yeah, because we don't know entirely if it's going to continue that way, but it's not likely to fall down to where it was, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think,
Mhm.
averaging them out is probably, and we also don't know exactly the total scope. You know, things change by, you know, centerline feet that we do projects on can change just several hundred feet, 1,000 feet. Excuse me.
Are we anticipating any, federal funds, support projects, something for like the well project or the structure in general?
Currently, no. There's a lot going on there, the way that all those different funds are coming around. The thing that's gonna make us most interested is if something comes out that has a high probability of, principal forgiveness or grant, right? The low interest loans at this point aren't worth chasing too hard because we have pretty low interest loans, you know? So this is kind of the same method, but when we get a line on something that could have principal forgiveness, we'll go after that. The free money, yeah.
Sure, sure. All right, are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion that
Yeah,
you're
I'm
looking for?
I'm basically looking for a motion to approve so that I can tell finance tonight that, you guys sent this forward favorably because there's work to be done by, our Ellers, what do you call them? They're not our bond rating agency, they're our, financial, consultant, bond counsel, right. So, I'll tell them tonight, if you guys approve this, that we're wanting to come along with their efforts on borrowing and to these amounts.
I move for approval.
Haynes seconds.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the, recommendations for bonding, projected bonding over the next, 2 years for projects for our various utilities. All those in favor of, these motion, please indicate by, stating aye.
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 Hearing none against, the motion is passed. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
Next, on the agenda is water supply and distribution reports. Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a couple quick updates. We concluded our monitoring well sampling project and got all the results back from the university lab. So October, I plan on having a brief update on the monitoring wells. So look for that come here in October. We just got all the data, so I gotta thumb through it all. Jamie entered it all. In August, we tested half of our 3 and 4 inch meters. We're required to test them biennially. So we got 70 or 75 of those tested. And then also we've created a online meter exchange scheduling portal. So instead of just knocking and sending letters, we now have a portal we can go to, customers can go to schedule meter exchanges. So we're kind of in the process of testing that and then getting that out to the public with letters.
Are those just those big meters you were talking about, or are those all residential meters and everything?
For the 70? Or,
No, for this portal.
nope, that'd be just for residential.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I guess commercial, could apply if we send a letter with the link or something. It's gonna be on the city website, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions for me on anything?
No, guess we're good. Hearing none, move on to item 6, sewage treatment, with Chris.
All right, our wastewater plant met all of our required limits by the DNR, per usual. Kind of status quo, getting through the summer, getting through everything, making sure everything's running well. We did have a WWOA, which is the Wisconsin Wastewater Operators Association, tour last Friday. We walked roughly 60 wastewater professionals through the wastewater plant and digestion and drying complex. There's a lot of interest, a lot of good questions, so that went very well. It's definitely the biggest tour I've ever given. Glad it wasn't 600, it was only 60.
Still be there.
I'd still be there. Other than that, everything is going very well. If you have any questions, I'll fill any questions you have.
I had one question going through the charts and wondering if that drying process was to have an effect on the, our measured, outflows, or were we to reduce phosphorus in this process?
The dryer process will not do anything with our phosphorus. The same amount of, well, actually, if anything, it will make it harder to meet our phosphorus limits because we are removing a lot more moisture. Initially, when we were hauling a liquid sludge to the fields for biosolids, it holds more of the phosphorus in the water. Now we're making a dry product, so we're having to dewater a lot of that. So a lot of the phosphorus that was in that water that we were land applying is now coming back through the facility, and we have to remove it again. And it ends up getting into the solids, but it takes a little longer. It takes more loops around the plant before it's gone.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I have a question for you on the, precip. It says here that our maximum was 2¼ inches for August. We had 6.5 inches. That, my question, I guess, was how did that affect the treatment plant? Did we get a lot higher infiltration?
We are a very sandy community, got very light soils, so we don't see a lot of infiltration and inflow. We used to see a lot more. The utility has done a lot of lining projects in the last decade now. Between the west side, out by Schmeekley Reserve, those areas that are a little heavier soiled. So that's really sealed a lot of things up.
Okay.
So as long as we don't have frost in the ground, we don't see much for infiltration anymore.
Sweet. Did that, month's worth of high precip affect, operations with, putting pipes in the ground?
On the construction
Yeah,
side?
on the construction side.
I mean, we had a couple slowdowns, but I mean, those are pretty standard.
Even today, they're working like nothing happened, I would assume.
Yeah.
Our guys are out there, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Chris? Hearing none, we move on to the construction and maintenance with Craig.
Good afternoon, everyone. Still continuing on the lead service replacement. It's going pretty well, in about 3 weeks or so we'll continue that till probably end of October if possible. Keep plugging away and get as many done as we can this year. We're gonna install a little bit of fiber optic extension to get eventually to our new well stalls. The east side project, resurfacing project, we're gonna sneak some conduit in there, so that's prepared. And we're also gonna do a little swaling starting this month. Indiana, Harmony Lane, with the cooperation of hopefully Town Hall, so work together and see if we can mitigate some of our flooding we have over in that area, so.
You know, we did some swale work down in Indiana a few years ago. Up the end of it, but, is there more in that northern part?
Right, so we're gonna, just north of, it's gonna be, start at Regent Street and go north to Harmony, and then we're gonna go, and it turns to Town Hall and goes down Harmony.
Okay.
Back in there, we have quite a bit of flooding in that general area there at times, so we're hoping with some swales, lessen that impact.
Okay.
Town Hall has agreed to help us out with some labor and some trucks and stuff like that, so.
Good.
Together with them, seeing that it is their area kind of, so.
When you see this shaded gray area here, that's out of town, out of the city, Stevens Point, in this case it's Hull. And, one of our, this spring, we made a point to really document the areas we have trouble with in the spring, when frost is still in and we have melting, and we always end up hauling or pumping or something from here.
Right.
This is one of them, and what's happening is the water's coming all the way from around the corner, and this is a Town Hall Road, coming into Indiana, and pooling here. So if we swale these and keep the water where it lands more, so it'll have less of a ponding effect in our intersection. And they've gotten to several areas like that this summer, and they've all worked really well. So we just keep getting those lists put together in the spring and hammer them out during the summer, and it'll be a lot less demanding on staff in those springtime thaws.
When you say you end up hauling.
The vac truck, yep.
Through our vac trucks, right?
Oh, wow.
Well, just for the fact, kind of there, as you can tell, we really don't have, any infrastructure that's close.
Right.
We have time and resources, we will pump it up to Stanley Street. If we have the resources,
Okay.
depending on how bad it is.
But the back truck does the job of keeping.
Yeah, right, right, we can put on, we can put in roughly 2,000 gallons of water at a time, and you just have to haul it and dump it out, so it's faster if we can pump it. We're hoping to eliminate a lot of that.
Yeah, that's exactly, it's those type of things where we're addressing our construction activities as far as the kind of stuff they do. Because if we can put in, several days or a couple weeks worth of time into fixing the issue, never have to go back there again, it's, time well spent.
Never?
Well,
We're
yeah. Short term, never. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Craig. On the construction update?
Nothing additional on the, community area network report. Everything is going just as it was there. You saw the claims paid for the first time here on this month, and we continue to estimate work for interested parties and get a little more done. We're doing some for Parks Department here coming up because of their construction, but nothing unusual.
Okay. So on to, director's report.
A couple things to add there. One, you may see some news out there. We're working with Recycling Connections. They're a company, they're located downtown. They do a lot of education and promotion type stuff related to solid waste programs generally. But they're putting together a program for us to engage with related to rain gardens. Part of our permit from the DNR, our MS4 permit for the DNR every year, is education and outreach. And what they've done is put together a program that involves the schools. You get some teachers committed. You talk about rain gardens and what they do. Our portion is going to be paying for some plants and stuff like that. And then they plant the rain garden, and that same effort also includes a year later going back and looking at it and seeing what it did and stuff like that. So it's kind of a cool project. It helps us out in our permit. We're required to do stuff like this. So it's one of those kind of neat little projects that's going on. On the Well 12 side, in the weeks ahead, be reaching out to some of the property owners in the area there to have kind of not so much initial, but some more conversations about where we might do well placement, what properties out there and available, and there's some steps we need to go through because of the fact that we're a municipal entity. When you start talking about potential land acquisition, there's some hoops you got to jump through to do it appropriately. So that'll be starting in the next couple of weeks here. And then,
are there any municipally owned right of ways or anything that?
Yeah, right where we did the test well is actually a cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of the potential sites.
Okay.
Yep. And then finally, we have some 100th anniversary stuff here. Some small mugs, big mugs, pens in there, stickers in there. So before you guys leave, decide what kind of size mug you want. We had a little logo developed here. The one on the sticker is actually a little better. But it's got a little 100-year anniversary thing. This utility was purchased by the city from a private, developer back in 1922. So this is our 100th year. So we're just commemorating that with some swag.
Darn, I missed
Yep.
the swag.
Yeah, me too.
It'll be here for you. Don't worry about it. Yep.
Mm.
But that's all I've got.
All right. With that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move Nachman.
It's been moved. All those in favor of adjourning,
Aye.
signify by aye. There we go. We're adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.